Brown says, get that India. Big boy.
Call an ambulance! Maybe call a priest! Oh, what a shot! What a shot! Campbell killer!
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. It's been few and far between this year. It's a rare occasion, but it's an instant reaction following not just a win, but a pretty good win, 60s. Eels with the big upset against the New Zealand Warriors over in Auckland. Final score, full time, Eels 30 to the Warriors 20. And probably not reflective of how good the Eels were for about 74 minutes of that game. But geez, it's good to be here in Instant Reaction, big fella. We can talk about some good football for once.
How long's it been? 5 years since we've done a winning instant reaction? It feels like it. It absolutely feels like. I mean, you and I were absolutely confident of the win in the.
We were tipping double-digit victory, margin of victory for sure for the Eels. Remember, guys? As he quickly goes back and edits the tape on YouTube and SoundCloud and Spotify and whatnot.
Now, I have a confession, and people who know me and my reputation will understand how I took one for the team in this regard. So the confession is, because I am the mock of all mocks, I never bet on Parramatta. I never backed Parramatta to win. So tonight I put money on the Warriors to win. Hello. Thank
ding,
you.
Ding, ding, ding,
You're
ding,
welcome.
Ding. Yep.
You're welcome. And it had to happen. It had to happen as soon as my coin was on them. And I say this to people. It was my last ditch plea for the Eels to win. My last ditch play, for the Eels to get a game across. Because I'll be honest, I honestly didn't see a win coming. A long way from it. You and I, when we spoke about it in the preview, we said that they needed the energy of their effort last week, but expected that, given that last week I thought they really put in a big effort for Gutho. I didn't know that they could back it up. I had my reasons for believing that they wouldn't be able to back it up this week. They did, and then some, because not only did they back up the effort, what they brought with them was greater discipline, and not just discipline, but there was real composure in the performance, genuine composure. And we just were speaking before we started recording, and I suggested to you that it's the best composure I've seen from them since that round one victory over the Bulldogs. I haven't seen it since then.
Yeah, it's hard to argue.
It was quite remarkable. You sent a text to me around or just before half time, and what was it that you said to me? Who is this? Or,
what team is out there? Like, who is this?
What team is out there? And I replied to you, the 2025 Premiers.
Exactly. Yeah, never too early to get onto the bandwagon for the Premiership next year, guys.
That's it. That's it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Before we get any further, we've had many chances this year. This is just the fifth time to shout out our sponsors, star partners, Real Estate Auburn, Rowan, and Parramatta, on the back of a winning effort from our boys in the NRL. So now is as good a time as any to say thank you to them for their sponsorship of our podcast and the website. I love the crew there. Greg and company, fantastic supporters for TCT. So enjoy this one, guys. Eels' fifth win of the season puts them a full step ahead of the West Tigers, a critical step ahead of the West Tigers as they look to combat that wooden spoon away from the club. And I said to you, it feels like we got 9 fingers off the kitchenware right now, but with that head-to-head match against the Tigers, if they jag one before that, is going to set up the worst kind of scintillating finish to the season. So the Eels with a big step forward here with that win against the Warriors. Let's go through the tail of the tape very quickly before we get into our takeaways. Eels 30 defeating the Warriors 20. For the Tigers, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Shans Nickel-Clockstar, Marata Niokore, and Dallin Watine-Zelezniak try scorers. Flurry of points in the last 9 minutes, or thereabouts, last 9 or 10 minutes for the Warriors, making that scoring look far more closer than the game actually was for the vast swathe of action. Sean Johnson having a rough night kicking, just the one goal for him. Chanel Harris-Tavita tacking on the final 2 points there. Harris. Johnson also missing a penalty goal on the stroke of halftime, which was a nice little blessing for the Eels. Then on the other side, Jake Tungor making it 2 tries first over the line in 2 weeks. Well done to him. And then we had Joey Lussick, Dejan Arce, Blaze Talangi, and Clinton Gufferson scoring. Guffo taking back over the kicking duties, and he had a fantastic night, 5 from 5. A couple of nice left to right fades there as well. Jake Tungor, unfortunately, spending another, it wasn't 10 minutes. It was only 9 minutes last week, actually, because of the way it worked with the extra time running into the halftime break. But he spent 6 minutes in the sin bin this week for pretty much the same offence, 60s. So he's, yeah, I thought he was going to get away with it for a second, but Todd Smith went to the bunker and made sure he got the number right and then put him in the bin. In terms of the key stats, Eels with less ball, 48%. So they were minus 4% there on the split of possession, down 2.5 minutes in time of possession. Both teams completing pretty effectively. Eels ended up dipping down to 75%. 60s, they were almost perfect at half time, but they ended up going 30 of 40 for 75%. Warriors up at 82%. The Warriors with more run meters, but less line breaks. Slightly more tackle breaks for the men from the land of long white cloud, but the Eels are the faster play ball speed by a fraction of a second there, sorry. Eels didn't offload much early in the game. Came home, I won't say for wet sail, but with a lot of offloads to go up 12 to 9 in that regard. And then we get to tackle rates, both teams, okay. Warriors, the better of the two, 88.21% for them and their effective tackle rate, whereas the Eels were at 86.5%. 43 missed tackles for the Eels to the Warriors, 31. And then about par for ineffective tackles, 15 for New Zealand, 16 for Parramatta. Eels much cleaner in terms of possession, in terms of errors. Just 10 for the Blue and Gold to 15 for the Warriors. They did concede 8 penalties to 3, though. That was a lot of whistles being blown against the Parramatta Eels. Gave away 5 ruck infringements to 2. So the Warriors have all the calls in terms of the flow of possession and territory. That was reflective in the opening exchanges, 260s, which we can talk about shortly. In terms of the individual efforts, couldn't go past the king off the top of the rank here. 222 metres from 21 carries. A line break assisted try assist, a couple tackle busts. There was a couple of moments where he probably pushed a pass. He probably didn't need to, but he had an outstanding game. Likewise, this is going to be pretty much a solid team effort across the board, but in terms of guys that jump out in the stat board, Penasini and Talangi both around 130 metres on the ground. Dillbag's nearly 150. He had a fantastic game. In terms of the middle forwards, Amato and Ofangahi were both the picks there. 144 metres for Ryan and 169 metres for Joe Ofangahi. And then the other two players that probably deserve a quick shout out there were the two dummy halves who had pretty good games. Brendan Hands overcame an early concussion scare to have a really nice game around the middle, and Joey Lysick scored a great individual try. So well done to the boys. Let's talk some football now, mate. What were your big takeaways here? The Eels securing a very important victory and starting to, I don't want to say it, but rounding into a little bit of form after the last couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, we, as I said earlier at the start of the podcast, we speculated that what they would need was that level of effort and a far better execution than what we saw last week. And they basically gave that. You just mentioned then about the completion rate. The completion rate in the first half was absolutely outstanding, considering there was two of the 3 errors occurred in the last 2 minutes of the first half. And really, in dropping down to that 75% completion rate, that was really chancing their hand. And I wasn't entirely sure that they needed to chance their hand when they were doing so in the second half. I mean, they really pushed some passes. It brought about some errors. It could have, in a tighter game, brought about their undoing. Todd Smith, mate, your favourite referee, but somehow he couldn't see, and the bunker couldn't see an obstruction
And
in
Jesus,
that Warriors first try.
Gufferson remonstrated with him after, didn't he? Essentially asking if he wants Parramatta players to take a dive in order to get the bunker to call it, because we saw a similar call last night. If anyone was watching the Tigers and Cowboys play, Appy Coruscant was impeded even more blatantly in a try the Cowboys scored, and for all money it was an obstruction, and then the bunker just gave it the green light. And when I saw that last night, I didn't feel great about our chances when that one went up to the bunker today. And yeah, look, the bunker, we go through cycles of this where just common sense and basic understanding of the rules just gets thrown out. Like, that is a clear as day obstruction. Dylan Brown gets checked by, I think it was Murata running down that side there. No, it wouldn't have been. It would have been the other back row, I think. But anyway, he gets checked and then still nearly gets there to make the tackle. So you can't tell me he wouldn't have been able to be in a position to make a play to save the try. So yeah. Terrible work from the bunker there. But that's par for the course these days. And we have to, like, not just the Parramatta Eels, like I said, the Tigers last night, and pretty much any team in a sort of, game-to-game, situation-to-situation basis have to just play roulette or craps with the equivalent that is the bunker at the moment. So, yeah, Eels had, in saying that, the Eels had a bit of luck, had some, bounces of the ball, had a successful challenge on a Jake Tungor drop that could have easily just been deemed a knock-on. And that's the sort of world we live in right now when it comes to the officiating.
Yeah, look, I mean, I would still say the majority of calls went the Warriors' way. I mean, the 8-3 penalty
plus a
kick,
5-2 ruck infringement count too. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really what made the first half performance from the Eels so much more impressive, was they didn't have the sort of glut of possession and territory they had against the Melbourne Storm. It was the reverse of the script this week, where the Warriors had early ascendancy and were winning the arm wrestle through the middle, winning the field position battle, the territorial battle. And the Eels are the ones that were in their red zone having to defend their goal line, and they were the ones that were stepping up and making plays. And it was a steal in resolve that we hadn't seen perhaps all of this year. I mean, you go back to round 1, 60s again, where we only considered 2 tries to the Bulldogs, one of which was an absolutely sensational effort from Viliami Kikau to create a ridiculous try that pretty much only he could do. So that was probably the last time we'd shown such grit in defense.
And it was probably that period of time early in the game where we really stepped up defensively that marked the fact that this was going to be another big effort game from the Eels, because we have for such a long time been measurable by what the opening 5 minutes of a game is like.
True.
Whether we had the mind switched on for the game. And my greatest concern, and we said this in the podcast, was it was going to be a game of what was between the ears this week.
Yep.
Were they focused?
Switched on, dialed in, exactly. And we saw against Melbourne, they brought the effort, they brought the energy, didn't bring the smarts. And that handicapped their ability to compete with the Melbourne Storm. And instead, this week, same energy, same effort, same intensity, maybe even a step up in intensity, because they managed to bring that deep into the second half. And instead of being rudderless in the opposition red zone, I thought that Dejan Arce, Quinton Gufferson, and Dylan Brown, alongside the 2 dummy halves, all had some really good moments and had some really nice direction. They weren't wasted sets and squandered tackles that we saw like last week. There was a real direction, and the Warriors struggled to go with us because of it.
Even without the players that Parramatta are missing, and that's a raft of players, but probably none more important than Mitch Moses. Even without those players, if the Eels had played last week, if they had played with that commitment, that focus, composure, like they did tonight, if they'd have done that last week against the Storm, they could have gone very, very close to upsetting the Storm.
Yep.
It was a matter of execution and just a couple of critical errors that led to that defeat. Whereas tonight, it was there. You'd have to say for 70 to 75 of the minutes was, total focus and dedication. Couple of little moments that they did recover from where they pushed the pass a little bit too much. And who knows, the Warriors might have cracked if we had have just simply, rather than, playing a bit of high risk football on the last tackle, 30 metres out. If they had just dinked a kick behind the line and kept making the Warriors come off their line, maybe with even that little bit more smarts, and I'm not going to say there was no smarts in chancing their hand, because let's face it, we're sitting at the bottom of the table, and there's almost a nothing to lose attitude, but really there is something to lose. We don't want the wooden spoon, and as harsh as it is to be, as wrong as it is, I guess, to be having the main goal of staying away from the wooden spoon, it's still a goal. There is something to achieve for the rest of the year, which is to get as many wins as possible, not just one or two, but maybe flum 2 or 3 from the last few games. So it was a game that I think if we were playing it at Combank Stadium, we probably would have been ridiculously enthused about what was happening out there. I think, but watching it from afar, like tonight, it was almost like I was watching it feeling stunned as well with how good the performance was. And now we can enjoy it because the game's over and we can relax a little bit. But yeah, there was a part of me that was waiting for something to go wrong.
Yeah,
and
for the shoe to drop. Yeah.
So so much credit to go to the team, and shout out to a couple of people. First of all, our good mate Clint, who had said last week at the game at Combank Stadium that he gave a really good chance for the Eels to win. And look, I do have to give a shout out as well to another one of our listeners and followers, and that's Brody Eade. And Brody, I'm giving you a shout out because you were extremely confident of the team getting a win, and I wanted to give you a shout out for that, mate.
The line between genius and insanity is razor thin, and Brody straddled the right side of it this week, I think.
Yes, yep. So well done with that, mate, because you came good, and you did keep the faith and believe that they could win this. They could win. So nothing like having that confidence to go with to happen at a time when maybe a lot of us are doubting it. So really, really good, and every Eels supporter out there who has continued to turn up, who is, no matter what, how grim things are looking, that they're getting to the games, or they're keeping the faith and saying, look, we can win this. Shout out to you. I guess not only was the win for everyone, but it's got to be that much sweeter for those that said, look, they can get this done tonight. So and might I also say too, it was very gratifying to finally be able to tweet out my usual expletive after a victory. So and how good were those Eels supporters in the crowd?
There was I mean, credit to the Fox crew. They found enough of them to keep the camera rolling across various big moments in the game. And yeah, fantastic turnout. It was a home sellout. Warriors have done great in that regard this year, but plenty of blue and gold in the crowd. So well done to whether you're a travelling fan or you're a local of Auckland that supports the Parramatta Eels. You showed some terrific support in a pretty hostile environment. There was some pretty mean signs out there, I got to say. Ryan Madison copping some grief from one fan with a big meme sign there. And, yeah, well done in the crowd and well done on the field. It was a great combined arms approach there from fans and footballers.
Well, I must say the Auckland-based Eels supporters were a very entertaining lot to look at too. So, and look, I guess it's a fun crowd that gets to the games over there in Auckland. Apparently, smoked eel is a favourite delicacy over there, not only in the football crowd tonight, but I am told, yes, it is a favourite meal over there in Auckland. So there you go. I don't know if you caught that with the person that actually had it looked like a diorama that they'd made of the barbecued eel.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
Very very
the
entertaining
barbecue
stuff. Yeah. So unfortunately for the Warriors home fans, you didn't come away with the win tonight, and you've turned up in great numbers throughout the year, and they probably deserve better. But I think tonight was just about the death knell for their finals chances.
Yeah, it's that time of the season where if you're battling from outside the top 8 looking in, you can ill afford to trip up against any team, let alone one that's legitimately in spoon contention. And the Eels, in their ambush, the Warriors probably, if they didn't put the final nail onto the coffin, essentially got it halfway in and just needs one more tap now. New Zealand, I think, need pretty much a flawless run home with maybe results going their way, and they've got a pretty tough schedule, not too dissimilar to Parramatta. Some top 8 teams on the horizon for them, and I think most of their remaining games in Sydney, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Now, you touched on before some of the good performances, and we'll get to our 3-2-1 very shortly. But I do want to give some shout-outs, especially because I thought tonight may well have been the best game that Dejan Arcee's played for the Eels.
Yeah. He's had good games before, working in relief with either Dylan Brown or Mitchell Moses, and he's had some, rough games where the week-to-week physicality of the NRL has worn down on him a little bit. Tonight we saw such a composed and committed effort, really tight kicking game, played a really good distribution role in the number 7, showed some real ticker in defence. The Warriors went after him, and I think by and large he aimed up, and it makes such a difference when your halfback, whether it's Moses, Arcee or anyone else, is fronting up defensively. It allows the rest of the edge to function with much more confidence, and I think we saw that tonight where him, Lane, obviously Blaze as well down that side. It wasn't like the Warriors didn't have any success down that side, but they weren't having the success that we've seen other teams do. So Dejan with a fantastic all-round game, scored a nice try off that line dropout that was created by some terrific defense from Brendan Hands. And yeah, I thought Dejan with a really, really good game. And like you said, very much in contention for his best as an NRL player.
Yeah, and I think his performance complemented Dylan Brown and allowed Dylan Brown to play the game that he did tonight. And Dylan's going to feature very highly in my best on field assessment. But yeah, I think Dejan, even if it wasn't so much a case of them linking that leads me to say complemented it, it was more that the strength of the performance from Dejan Brown lifted the onus of. Did I say Dejan Brown? I did say Dejan Brown. Maybe what we saw tonight was a new player called Dejan Brown, but Dejan Arcee, his game really did take away the, I guess the extra onus that keeps a applying to Dylan Brown, and even tonight in the pre-game there was talk, and Cooper Cronk was talking about how Dylan just doesn't measure up enough, and I keep emphasising the fact that the effort levels from Dylan Brown are absolutely off the chart on a weekly basis, and in trying to in people looking at and thinking, well, he's not doing enough in the halves to, and they're obviously thinking about that from an attack point of view. I don't know if it's fully appreciated just the effort areas that are there, and especially in defence as well. And it's not just the actual tackles that are made, it's his defensive movements that are there in trying to shut down plays or those last-ditch efforts to get across. And we saw that again tonight where, maybe he might have been better advised to have hit the turf. But he's such a competitor that he wasn't thinking, I've been knocked, I'll go to the ground and get the penalty here. He was just, all he was thinking was save the try.
Yep.
He stays, for a bloke who's a self-confessed space cadet, he stays in the moments in games so much better than many players, because he is there competing. Like, he competes. And maybe people think he's a bit laconic. He's, maybe sometimes there might be times where he's almost a little bit like, Brett Kenny was one to look as if, he wasn't worried about things and just, wasn't all tense about the game or wanting to get heavily involved. But he was, it was, and I think Dylan Brown's a little bit like that. I think sometimes there's an appearance that he's not as intensely involved in the play, but I'd hate to think about what the results would be like if there was no Dylan Brown. And that's the same can probably be said of Clint Gutherson. Will definitely be said of Clint Gutherson. What would their results be if Clint Gutherson wasn't out there? So anyway, that's getting off the point about giving a bit of praise to Dejan Arce. Another one that you mentioned as well, Brendan Hands. I thought he had quite a lot of moments that he won in the game, because when we were talking about earlier this season, and we've talked about it actually many times through the losses, Parramatta in all the losses that they've had, and it was particularly costly in some of the closer games where they were genuinely in it, were losing moments. Like, they would lose key moments. And tonight there were times when Brendan Hands won key moments. And you already mentioned one, which was that forced line dropout, where it was that extra effort. He wasn't just going in to make a tackle. He already had it in his mind that he was a chance of driving this bloke back. So it was like one of those effort on effort plays that we talk about, but it was effort on effort in a different way. So it was good contact first up, and then the extra effort to drive the player back into the in goal, and most importantly, doing it on his own in a tackle. So just that well, I don't know whether you call it instinct, but certainly that commitment to get that play done. And look, he didn't have as much game time, but it was, for the minutes that he was on the field, it was one of the better performances from Joey Lussick. That try that he took was perfection, taking it, that run at that time. To realise that, that was a great opportunity for him and to take it when it was there. Oh, I should have mentioned as well, Brendan Hands, like that line break that he made and set up, like eventually it came undone with just
right
one pass
at the very
too many.
depth, with the goal line in sight. Yeah, well, no. Yeah, but I feel like the big thing with Brendan was sharp offense was complemented by some really great defense.
Oh, yeah,
I mentioned that he set up that what be the try scoring opportunity for Dejan Arce on the back of a withering individual tackle to drive. I'm not sure what it was in the Warriors, but driving back in goals from about 3 meters in the field of play. And
yeah,
they're the sort of things that really lift the team. And
yeah, absolutely. And there was also another moment where the ball had hit the ground and he just scrambled as fast as he could to recover a ball that had hit the ground when we were on the attack. And we've seen so many times in recent weeks where when the ball goes down when we're on the attack in the opponent's quarter, that turnover of possession can be so costly.
Yep.
And even if it wasn't going to be, a case of the Warriors picking it up and going the length of the field, what he showed was desperation to get there and to keep possession for the Eels rather than to, having moments that we've seen before where the ball is surrendered to the opponents when we've got them on the rack. So, again, a shout out to Brendan Hands for that. And look, the forwards as a unit really did an effective job, and there'll be a couple that we'll talk about in particular, I would imagine, when we're about to give our best on field tonight. But, I thought that the way they just kept turning up when the Warriors were trying to win that battle through the middle, and it was probably the most focused. There was aggression in our play, but it wasn't like out of control sort of aggression. And maybe it's just a simple matter of saying that word composure again, but I just thought we really didn't waver from what we set out to do. And, even like we've been critical of Sean Lane at different times this year, but I thought that was one of his better performances,
Yeah.
even if it didn't jump out from a statistical point of view. It was a great performance, and the other back rower as well, Bryce Cartwright. It was a tough performance that he put in tonight. Didn't overplay his hand. Got through the workload that he needed to, and as I said, it was just a great effort all round from the team before we start to get into the specifics of our best on field. So, are you ready to get into our best on field comments?
Sure.
John?
Let's get into it.
Okay. So, who have you got for your three?
It's a pretty hard fought one this week because Guffo, I mean, we mentioned in our preview that best on field you could almost just default to either Gufferson or Dylan Brown. And it's quite fitting that they're probably the two prime candidates here. But I thought that Brendan Hands, he's very good. Madison, Ofengahi, very strong as well. But those three probably falling just a tick behind the first two. I really don't know how to split these two, honestly. Guffo was, characteristically ultra consistent. The goal kicking was ace, and it's been a big part of not our losses because we've been losing pretty comprehensively, but the fact that we've been scoring in fours instead of sixes has been so demoralising as a fan. I can't imagine what the players have been feeling like. And the fact he came back on, hadn't taken a kick for months, and absolutely nailed 5 of them in a row. Well, I say months. I think he kicked one goal last week. I'll give it to Gufferson very, very narrowly ahead of Dylan Brown, who was absolutely tireless. Likewise, Dejan Arce also very close there too.
Okay, so is that your 3-2-1?
That's my 3 points for there. 2-1, I still haven't decided.
Okay, so given that I tipped Gutherson to be best on field, and that he produced like he did tonight, it would be ridiculous if I didn't select him for my 3 points. So I'm going to agree with you on that. Every week he saves tries, and we saw that again tonight, even right at the death. Again, it comes down to competing right to the end in games, and that's what he's about. So he he gets my 3, and you could see that the passion in the team tonight was headed up by Gutho, and where we were questioning, would the team again lift, given that they lifted for Gutho's 200th last week? They couldn't get the result. What have they got to play for the rest of the year? Well, obviously the message is being made loud and clear by Clint Gutherson that they have, if nothing else, they're certainly their pride, and tonight, as supporters, we thank them because they did the team proud tonight. So Gutherson absolutely for the 3 points. Yeah, and you're right. It starts to get really, really hard here because we've already given a shout out to some players, and there's going to be some that I haven't mentioned as yet because they're very, very close to getting points. So I'm going to let you go first, mate, because I'm trying to decide between some backs and some forwards.
Yep.
Because there were some big efforts in both through the middle as well as out a little bit wide. So who's your 2 points?
Yeah, 2 points. We mentioned Dylan Brown, Dejan Arce, Brendan Hands in the forwards. Obviously, Maddo, Ofengahi. You said Sean Lane had a good game. And you look at the numbers, 10 carries, 103 metres. Not credited with a single line break and only just one tackle break 60s. But I felt like on 3 or 4 occasions, he, if not had broken the line, was so damn close that it's almost unfair he hasn't been credited with anything in that regard. But you talk about your best player standing up on these big occasions. And with Parramatta's season obviously gone in terms of the finals, but very much on the line in terms of that piece of kitchenware that you don't really want to gather, I thought that Dylan Brown was excellent. And Dejan Arce complimented him beautifully. Brendan Hands equally outstanding at dummy half. But the big moments, Dylan Brown was tormenting that left edge of the New Zealand Warriors. They struggled to contain him for most of that game until he just forced his way through at the end. I think he broke a tackle or two en route to hooking up with Quentin Gutherson to put his captain over for what was he going to, I mean, you can say it was the ceiling try, but, the real cherry on top try here. So, yeah, I'll go with the 6, Dylan Brown, 2 points.
Yeah, I think I have to go with him as well. And he was dangerous all night, and he was the effort player up in the front line. Where we talk about the efforts of Clint Gutherson, he was one of the main effort players up in that front line, because you've got not only there was the optics. You knew he had a lot of run meters even without seeing the stats. But he's come up with 145 run meters. But with that has been the 4 tackle breaks that he's come up with.
Which, again, is feeling a little bit on the stingy side, because he was dragging Warriors post-contact with pretty much every carry. So,
yeah. But that's been a feature of him all season, where he's been dragging players with him. And I've been critical of the teammates that weren't bobbing up in support beside him, because there's been so many times this year where he's actually been standing in a tackle, or he's been, he's been slowed down, but he's been dragging people with him in post-contact, standing and looking for someone to offload to, and there's no one bobbing up in support. And I thought there's been, where he's been criticised for not sparking the attack, I would suggest to people as well that he hasn't had the people running off him that should have been running off him all year. And that comes down to individuals and their efforts to turn up in support. But he very, very closely gets that. And of course, on top of that, there was, 24 tackles? It was just, it was a monumental effort. But I'll jump in now, John, because maybe we might go with someone different. I'm hoping if I jump in now, you've got a counterpoint for who you will go to for your 1 point, right? I'm going for Joe Offengowie.
I have to go someone different, but I was going to make a joke about that as well. He had a fantastic game, didn't he? He's been so good this season, and been really unfortunate for him to join the Eels during a downturn when we were hoping he was going to be a big piece of that push towards a premiership. 18 carries, damn near 170 metres. Got through a stack of defensive work as well. If I look at his numbers here, 24 tackles, 2 missed, 1 alleged squirrel grab, which was a very weird moment in that game where I don't think the replay showed anything near it. But
No.
Martin Zalesniak was obviously upset, but Joe was awesome. He even got a little bit of playmaking going on at one point with a nice little run and dummy underneath that drew a penalty for someone getting taken out off the ball. Such was the way he sold that inside pass. But yeah, Joe was awesome and damn worthy of that 1 point.
Yeah, his level of consistency this year has been through the roof in a year where we've had players on big coin, players who have, I guess, produced some disappointing performances, or certainly not their best games, and where we haven't been able to win the middle like we should. He's been someone who I would suggest to you, John, that although he's been Mr. Consistency this season, he's actually got better as the season's gone on still.
Yeah, he's definitely found some more petrol in the tank some way, somehow. Like you said, as the season's gone on, and the Eels have lost other core middles like Junior. He's found a way to step up alongside, I think, probably Madison as well. And I think those two are doing the lion's share of the heavy lifting in the middle right now.
Yeah, and I guess with Maddo, a lot of people have been talking about he's been the player that's been, given the tap on the shoulder, and he's been one of the players that's been rumoured.
And if that's true, he could have easily have clocked off.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say is, if that's the case, and if there's a likelihood that he's going, then he's leaving on terms where people can't question the effort that he's putting in. Like they can't. It's and I know he lost fans from the start of last year with that decision that he made to sit out the first few games of the season, rather than taking a fine, and he's probably going to wear that almost forever in Eels fans' memories. And, there's an element of that that's a little bit unfair because people keep raising that. I would suggest to you a bloke who, like Joe Offengowie has done, I think Maddo has also done, which is that when the times have got tougher, he's actually lifted his game. And I think it's, and people might, suggest, well, look, he's playing for a contract. Well, he's actually contracted.
Yeah, it's not a contract year for him.
Yeah, so he could literally say, no, I don't want to go anywhere. No, I'm staying here. I'm gonna earn this contract. I'm gonna collect the money for this contract. Yeah, I guess he doesn't even have to say I'm going to earn it. He could just say I'm staying. I'm getting me money. But he's producing, and while ever players are producing, we're not going to be critical of them. So he was very close tonight. But yeah, Joe definitely gets my 1 point. So who's your 1 point, John? 1
point. Well, you took Joe away from me. Damn it.
No, you can go for Joe.
No. We have to.
But I wanted to jump in because it was like I felt like I was following in your coattails with every suggestion. So,
honourable mention Joe. Honourable mention Maddo, who I've been having this discussion with some people, even as we talk right now online. I feel like he's been held to a pretty unfair standard due to, I think issues that people take with him stemming back to that decision to take a suspension over a fine. Nearly 150 metres, 39 tackles and just one missed. And I know it doesn't tell the full story in terms of, he might have missed the tackle by not being in the right position. That's not recorded on the stat sheets, but he played 60 minutes and busted his backside. And if anything, I should give him the 1 point for that. But he narrowly misses out alongside Brendan Hands, who was also outstanding, alongside a couple of the other players that were very good. I'm going to give it flowers to Dejan this week. The team has looked stilted for a number of weeks with the pairing between him and Dylan. And this week he did the, I'll say magnanimous, that probably is the best way of saying it, way of, taking more responsibility but less flashy play. And he took a step back even by taking, more hands on the ball, as counterintuitive as that seems, and the team flourished because of it. He focused on tidy long kicks, on solid defense, and setting up other players in Gufferson and Dylan to really flourish in this game. And for that, it's a very worthy 1 point. I thought he was very good, and he scored a nice try to put the icing on that particular cake.
You've gone for you've gone for a spine.
Yeah, a spine lockout on the points there, and I feel dirty with it because I thought. Oh,
you should be dirty, mate.
You've got
to get behind the big fellas somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But
look,
yeah.
I am actually pleased that you've gone that way, because the spine did go. They were instrumental in the win, and they're going to be instrumental really in any win. You're going to need the spine to be producing. I had a sneaky feeling you were maybe going to go for Brendan Hands.
Yeah, I made the tip on Brendan, as my best on field in the preview pod, and he was very close. Brendan was awesome. That's the sort of energy you want to see from your dummy half. Joey Lussick did a fantastic job complimenting him and got thrown into the action early on because of a concussion check on Brendan, and in tandem they worked together fantastically. So, yeah, good to see the totality of the spine having a fantastic game, because Parramatta, not like other teams. Obviously, you want your forward pack performing and you want your back line whirring, but the spine is where so much of the game is won and lost, and they've been, via injury and via bad luck, in way too many different configurations this year. But we saw tonight a really good realisation of this particular iteration of the spine, and that's, I think, a big reason as to why they won. So deserved points across the board there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, mate, I think that just about brings us to the conclusion of this instant reaction podcast. I mean, we could get into an early preview and talk about how we're going to take care of our bunnies, the Panthers.
Oh yeah. They you know what? After what we did to them last year in a very similar setup, they're probably trembling in their boots. And while we're talking about the Panthers, cheeky little shout out. There's still a few days left on a certain cooling off period, and if someone wants to teach a young Parramatta Eel how to do a little backflip, maybe go talk to Blake Ferguson in terms of the literal thing, but maybe DCE in terms of the one-on-one. There's still time for Blaze to make a cheeky little backflip on the Penrith Panthers, as unlikely as that is. But we can only dream. It's unfortunate, but
John, when we were thinking about a win this week, we were literally in dream territory. Can we dream up a victory away from home when we haven't won for so long? And you know what? They produced, so who knows? Maybe that Blaze Talangi backflip is somewhere out there.
There was the cheeky little badge pump when he scored that try as well. So, we just a little bit of emotional blackmail there, Blaze. Please stay.
Yeah. Well, look, if we put it out there into the universe, maybe we can manifest it.
We've done it before. We've manifested some weird stuff this year.
So yeah, look, let's get it done. Come on, Blaze. Let's do it, mate. Let's do it.
And I suppose the last little bit
brings us to the end, mate.
I was going to say last little bit of news. Unfortunately, New South Wales Cup got dusted up by the Warriors in the preview. So the pre-game curtain raiser 46-10. I suppose the only consolation is a couple of young Eels in Ethan Sanders and Jock Brazel scoring 2 tries there. Although only half of that's consolation because Ethan is off to the Canberra Raiders. So well done to Jock and Ethan for tries there. But tough sledding for the New South Wales Cup as we anticipated. 60s.
Yeah, and we do have the Jersey Flag playing in New Zealand tomorrow, so fingers crossed for their results. NRLW yet to feature, and then the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership is Monday night out at the Centre of Excellence. So,
Plenty of football to be played.
Fingers crossed for a couple more Eels wins at least. Let's aim for another 3. It would be a beautiful thing. So, again, thank you to you, John, for a splendid effort again tonight. Thank you to our listeners. We really appreciate the journey that you come on, the Cumberland Throw every year and following the Parramatta Eels. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, Greg and the team. Talk about loyalty. They're loyal to their Eels. They're loyal to the Cumberland Throw. We really appreciate their support. And as I always say, John, and it's extra true tonight, go you mighty Eels.